Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Mayoral Candidates Forum, A Blueprint for the City. My name is Michael Krasner. I am a professor of political science at Queens College of the City University of New York, and also the co-director of the Taft Institute for Government and Civic Education. To begin tonight's program, a co-production of Queens College and Schneps Media, it is my pleasure to introduce remarks by Victoria Schneps, the president of Schneps Media, and Dr. Frank Wu, the president of Queens College.
Hi, I'm Frank H. Wu. Queens College is located in the most diverse borough on planet Earth. We are deeply honored to partner with Metro Focus and amNYMetro New York to host this most timely mayoral forum. We are all eager to hear the candidates' visions for how they will accomplish the 3 R's needed for our great city in the years ahead: resilience, renewal, and renaissance. I wish you all the best of luck.
I'm Victoria Schneps, and with my son Josh, co-publishers of amNYMetro and PoliticsNY, we are so happy to be able to bring you this mayoral forum. As community journalists, it's our mission to be able to bring right to you the candidates running for mayor of the greatest city on earth. Enjoy and learn.
Thank you. In our program tonight, I will pose questions to the candidates along with 2 panelists. Stephen Witt is the award-winning political editor-in-chief of amNYMetro, and all Schneps Media properties. Andrea Buzon, an honors student and senior at Queens College, majors in psychology and minors in business and liberal arts. Answering our questions will be 2 of the leading candidates for mayor of New York City. Eric Adams, who currently serves as Brooklyn's borough president, was previously a state senator, and before that a police officer who retired with the rank of captain and was a founder of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. Raymond McGuire was for 13 years the head of global investment banking at Citigroup and served as a board member for the Citi Foundation, New York Presbyterian Hospital, the New York Public Library, and LaSalle Academy, a school for low-income gifted students. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question, a limit that will be strictly enforced by our stalwart timekeeper. And in addition, each will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement. We will begin alphabetically with Eric Adams and then switch throughout the show. Mr. Adams, please.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me on this event. I believe that these are important times, and as you acknowledge, as a former member of the New York City Police Department, I went into policing to change the department from within. After having a horrific experience as a young man, I was arrested. I was beat by police officers, and civil rights leaders came to me and asked me to go inside the police department and push for reform and safety. And I was able to start an organization called 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care, where we pursued and laid out the platform that you're seeing many people benefit from now as they push for the proper reform in our police department. But I also learned something else. I was a computer programmer when I came into the police department. I was part of the team that finally turned around crime in the city. We were experiencing 2,000 homicides a year and the equivalent amount of felonious assaults. And from that experience of taking a dysfunctional public safety apparatus and make it function, I learned that we need to look at all of our agencies. Let me tell this to you, listeners. Our city is dysfunctional. Cities are made up of agencies. And right now in New York cities and cities across America, those agencies are creating crises, and it is leading to the inefficiencies and the inequities, and in many cases, the injustices. The next mayor must de-silo our agencies, have them move with one mission to finally end the inequalities that we have witnessed far too long. And tonight we're going to share some of the ideas, I believe, on how we're going to accomplish that task. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Mr. McGuire.
Thank you for having me. I love New York City. I came to New York City with three things. I came with a great education based on my mother's sacrifices. And my mother worked three jobs at some point in time. And my mother, along with my grandparents, raised me and my two brothers. I didn't know my dad. She became a social worker. And based on her sacrifices, I was able to come East Coast and able to get an education. I came to the East Coast when I was 16 years old by myself. I took a Greyhound bus around. And I was able to go on to get a college education at Harvard College and then Harvard Law School and Harvard Business School. So I came here with a great education, with a lot of debt and no money. And I've been able to come in and knock down doors and face conscious and unconscious bias. Today, New York City is broke, it's broken, and it's divided. COVID has exacerbated and exposed the divide in the economy, in healthcare, in education, in the criminal justice system. I've spoken to New Yorkers, and New Yorkers want to change. They're tired of those people who manage by press releases. They want competent leadership. I have and helped to lead one of the largest, most important employers that exist in this city. Competent management. I've managed and led from the depths of the financial crisis. New Yorkers want accountability. I've been held accountable and been in a position longer than anyone else in the history of the corporate world. The New Yorkers want a leader who can bridge the divide. We need to bring this city together. My vision for the city rests on three pillars. The rest on the economy, go big, go small, go forward, the largest, most inclusive economic comeback in the history of this city. It is based on safety and justice, and it's based on education. I don't owe anybody any favors. So I can lead without respect to any special constituents, and I can do and fight for what is in the best interest of all New Yorkers, from the least of thee, whom I know quite well, who is me and my upbringing, to those who've been able to get accomplished. And I'm here to fight for New York City.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire. I will pose the first question, and it will go to Mr. McGuire. We've seen a strong trend toward inequality in recent years, as you know. In New York, it's epitomized by some people owning ultra-luxury apartments costing $40 million, while other people live on the street. How would you deal with inequality in housing in particular and inequality in general?
So before I left my day job, one of the forewords that I wrote was the impact of the systemic inequities that exist in healthcare, that exist in the economy, that exist in education, that exist in the criminal justice system. The way I would begin to address this is to make certain that New Yorkers had a job and that they had affordable housing. Our housing market today is in a state of emergencies. Many New Yorkers live in danger of eviction. 50,000 are experiencing homelessness. Middle-class families are also finding increasingly unaffordable. Many homeowners who are middle class have left. My plan, one, is to make certain that we build deeply affordable housing. My plan is to build 10% more housing units than what we have, 350,000 units of affordable housing, where those who make $20,000 to $30,000 don't pay more than 30% of their income in rent. There are examples of the housing about which I'm describing. One example is the Bronx Commons, where the rent goes from $225 to $1,999 for a three-bedroom, the most you can spend. So my plan is to build houses, deeply affordable houses, so the New Yorkers can afford them, and housing that also includes the elderly. We need to make sure that the elderly have homes in which they can live with dignity and age in grace, and make sure they will also have elderly care. And I also to make sure that along that line that we have childcare in each of these facilities. So my plan is to build truly affordable housing, $500 million or so to low income at least, enough to build roughly 3,000 new homes per year, double the current rate. I'm going to make certain that I build these houses and build them economically and build them so that people can go from homelessness to home ownership, which is my entire housing plan, which you can see on rayformayor.com. And I can pay for it. It's going to cost me $12 billion over the 8-year period, which I can access my capital budget with and not at all impact my credit rating or my operating expenses.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire. Mr. Adams.
Thank you for that. First, that's an important question that you raised. How do we end inequality? And that's what's important. And you must do it on two levels. First, we have to deal with the immediate need, and there's some immediate needs such as housing, homelessness, of education, and certain other immediate needs. But it must be a plan of a long-term plan to place us on the right pathway. I always talk about Archbishop Desmond Tutu quote, "We spend a lifetime pulling people out of the river. No one goes upstream and prevent them from falling in the first place." We have professionalized downstream programs. That's all we talk about in our city. How do we create programs to pull people out of the river? I say, let's go upstream. Let's look at the things that we witness in this city that create the inequities, such as education. We have education wrong in this city. When we talk about K through 12, the first classroom is in a mother's womb. Education must be from pregnancy to profession. And if you give a quality education to our children, it will combat many of the crises that are downstream. Let's look at our nutrition and healthcare. Chronic diseases is basically destroying the quality of life in our city. Let's not only treat those chronic diseases head on, but let's also put in place mechanisms to prevent the chronic diseases in the first place. Let's look at incarceration. Let's prevent the incarceration by ensuring we look at the 55% of young men and women at Rikers Island that have learning disabilities, or potentially 30% that are dyslexic, or deal with the 48% who have mental health illnesses. So we continue to produce downstream programs, and I say let's take our city upstream and prevent the crises in the first place.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Andrea will now pose a question that will go first to Mr. Adams.
Good evening, and speaking on behalf of students in higher education, keeping in mind President Biden's plan for free tuition at community colleges, how can the city make education more affordable for New York and for CUNY students? And what will you do as mayor to provide more employment opportunities for students and to help reduce student loan debt?
I know this so well, and I thank you for that question because I'm a CUNY twofer. I paid my way through college, 2 classes at a time. My son was born, I went down to 1, obtaining my 2-year degree, then obtaining my 4-year degree, and went on to obtain my master's degree. I know what CUNY students are going through every day, and it is the pathway into the middle class. And I'm going to surely restore from the mayor's preliminary budget the $77.3 million that we see constantly being removed from the budget. The 2-year colleges should be free, and I think CUNY should be free. It's far too long that we are holding people back because their inability to pay for their colleges. And not only that, on the college campuses, we need to look at what are the barriers for people not receiving their education, such as on college campuses. We should have food pantries. Food insecurity is real to CUNY students. We should have washers and dryers to allow CUNY students to have clean clothing. Many of our CUNY students are living in homeless shelters. I had a meeting with a group of CUNY students who sat out classes because, number one, they didn't have food, and number two, they didn't have the basic toiletries and items that they needed. And so we must go beyond what we're doing every day. And I will continue to be a strong advocate and push to make our CUNY system and our colleges free and affordable, and ensure that we give the wraparound services that are needed for every CUNY student.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Mr. McGuire, please.
Listen, as I said from the outset, education is fundamental to who I am. And when I came to this city, I had education, but I also had a lot of debt, and I had no money. And that for which New York City and the mayor should be responsible is for putting every single student on a pathway to success in life, whether that means community college, 4-year college, workforce, job training, national service. That is a tremendous seismic shift from where we are today, but it's a shift that I will make when I'm mayor. To start the shift, I'm going to do a major rethink on the options we're offering our children. I want to make sure that we have schools led by CUNY, aligned with the city's leading industry sectors in health and hospitality and media and technology and finance, where the city works closely with CUNY on a curriculum and the skills, an urgent to target approach to preparing students for their careers. CUNY, with its citywide footprint, will be the central to this effort. And we need to make certain that CUNY remains affordable, that those students who want to go to CUNY are there and they can do it, and they can focus on what will be the careers and the jobs of the future. CUNY should be the epicenter for workforce training. It should be the epicenter for technology. and we ought to make it affordable, and we ought to make sure that the curriculum is as good as it can get anywhere in the country, and make sure that our students from the high schools, which we improve, can access CUNY on an affordable basis. Education is fundamental to who I am. Education will be fundamental to the platform for which I will fight for New Yorkers and make education affordable. I know what it's like for education not to be affordable and to take out the student debts and to have my mother sacrifice and to take out loans. I want to make sure that parents today don't have to incur the same burdens as my mother does, but that they have the same, if not better, opportunities than I had.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire. Stephen Witt will now pose a question that will go first to Mr. McGuire.
Yes, a few years ago, Amazon was going to bring a headquarters here, and they backed out after a lot of resistance. And at the same time, other companies are considering leaving because of the high tax state. So let's play a little role game here. Let's say that I'm the head of a Wall Street firm with 2,000 employees, and my lease is up, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I should go to Florida or Texas. What argument would you give me as mayor of New York? Why should I stay?
So first of all, New York has the smartest, most driven people, the best culture, the best restaurants, the best theaters, the best minds in this city. So as you think about growing your company, if you think about where the best talent will be, those who are on the frontier of talent, where we have that which every family and every child and every middle-aged person and every senior would want. We have that here in New York City. And I want you here in New York City. New York City's best days are ahead of it as you take front and center in growing your company. And when it comes to HQ2 and that headquarters, I would have led in ways that we didn't have leadership. I would have gone to the communities. I would have talked about the infrastructure. I would have talked about the schools. I would have talked about the jobs. I would have talked about the financial impact of having Amazon HQ2 here. That would not have happened on my watch. I know how to negotiate. And so to those businesses that are thinking about leaving, I'd say stay. I'm going to stand with you. I am pro-growth. I'm pro-public-private partnerships. I want you to invest in the city. I want you to provide summer jobs, paid summer internships. I want you to provide apprenticeships for our students. I want you to be at the heart of this city so this city can grow, and I want to grow with you, and I want to partner with you, and I want to be your advocate.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire. Andrea Buzon will now pose a question that will go first to Mr. McGuire.
I don't know if we had a mix-up, but I didn't get a chance.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Mr. Adams, your turn. I apologize.
That's quite all right. First of all, the city is too expensive, too bureaucratic, too difficult to do business in. And the failure to really grow our economy lies in the fact that that is the reputation that New York has right now. So I'm going to change the mindset of my agencies. Businesses come to New York to ensure that we have the proper infrastructure. They don't need us to tell them how to grow, how to hire, how to expand their concept. What they need is a city that's, number one, safe. I'm going to turn around the gun violence in this city and the crime that we're witnessing. They need to know that when they reach out to the city for support, that agencies are going to respond, change the mindset of my agencies. Ensure that businesses come to New York, that you have a glitch. Okay, oh good. They need to know that when they reach out to an agency, that the agencies are going to have the right infrastructure so that they can get things done. You can't get things done in this city. And third, we need to get COVID under control. That is crucial to this city, that COVID is under control so we can get our central business district back open. We can have our business travelers return to the city. They make up 75% of our hotel occupancy, our theater life, our tourism. All of this is built on what I believe is the foundation, the prerequisite of our growth and prosperity is public safety and justice, and I'm going to ensure that. And then I'm gonna stop the negative narrative. 65,000 New Yorkers pay 51% of our income tax. Those are only 2% of our income tax filers. I'm telling everyone, we want you here together. We will cycle out of COVID-19, and that is why it's important to do so together.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Now, Andrea will pose a question that goes first to Mr. Adams.
According to recent data, there has been a continuing and a drastic decline in acceptance rates within the Black and Latinx students within specialized high schools. Will you consider investing more comprehensive youth education readiness within these communities to improve the acceptance rates and also to revamp the overall testing programs?
I believe we're looking at the specialized high school conversation from a place of a deficit and not a surplus. Our specialized high schools that basically have the most conversation, we're dealing with the 8 high schools as part of the SAT. I am disappointed of the low number of students who were enrolled. So I say, let's not allow those 8 schools to take the oxygen out of the room of the over 500 high schools we have. I will leave the 8 schools alone for now, open 5 more schools with a different criteria for entry, such as looking at exams, communications, interviews. Far too many students who are gifted and talented may have English language barriers, may come from different backgrounds, and they're not being accepted. I will open 5 more schools, different criterias, 1 in each borough, but I also will do something else. We will have universal tutorial services where we can start giving young people that desire to have tutors the opportunity to do so in a real way. And we will ensure that we build out a real pipeline to have gifted and talented programs in every community in the city, not what we have witnessed historically, such as many communities did not have gifted and talented programs to give the support that is needed. We would do additional test prep. We will start building out the pipeline, but build up all of our schools to make sure that they should all be special schools for all of our students and identify the needs of each one of those children and bring back the joy of learning in our school system.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Mr. McGuire.
Listen, there's not one institute of higher learning, one of the better educational institutions, at least let's say outside of Japan, that requires solely on one test. We need to expand the criteria. I am supportive of specialized high schools. We need to change the criteria. We can keep the test, but we need to expand the criteria. If I look at my alma mater today, lowest acceptance rate, it has the highest level of diversity in its history, which means those people who could least afford it have been admitted. So I know we can achieve the same thing. I'm disturbed by the lower number of Black and brown children who are participating in the specialized high schools. We should keep them and expand them, but we should also expand the criteria. In my alma mater, they, in many instances, decided that they were not going to use any of the standardized tests, in large part because many of the students who were applicants couldn't take the test because of COVID, and yet they achieved the same kind of outcomes in diversity and quality of school and quality of applications and quality of pool of talent. We can do the same thing here. And the other thing that we should do with the specialized is make them more competitive. We're going to have them make them more competitive. We used to have some of the most competitive specialized high schools that exist in the country. In fact, in the world. In the day we've flipped from maintaining those standards. I want to maintain and improve the standards. I want to increase the access, and I want to expand the criteria. The same thing for gifted and talented. We need to make certain that our children educationally get the exposure, expand gifted and talented, so that today, not our children's lives are not determined by their zip code, which today they are. We need to transform the entire educational system, for which I have a plan, which is in my plan of rayformayor.com, which goes from cradle to career, where I'm going to be held responsible for our children getting an education, not only for the jobs of today, but for the jobs of the future, including gifted and talented, including specialized, including every borough that exists in this city for the highest quality education.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire. We'll now change the format slightly and go to Stephen Witt for a lightning round where he asks questions that we ask you to answer very quickly. Stephen.
Nets or Knicks?
Mr.
Nets.
McGuire.
Mr. McGuire, I would say Knicks, but I got to put a bracket around the Orlando Magic. The son plays the Orlando Magic, the starting point guard, drafted first round into the NBA, and four nights or so ago hit the game-winning shot, for which there was a roar from the West Side that could have been heard in every borough. So I'm going to go with Knicks, but just put the asterisk there. I got to say something about the Magic.
Mr. Adams.
I said Nets. There's only one comment for me, and that's Nets.
Yeah, I think Brooklyn might have a championship this year.
Next question.
Next question. Would you ever vote for a Republican?
If he's doing right by the city and by the state, I would look closely at him and make a determination.
Mr. McGuire.
I'd look at the qualifications and whether or not his best interest is the best interest of New York City.
I'm going to assert the moderator's prerogative and ask the last question. I want each of you to assume that you have been elected mayor. What would be the measure of success? How would we know after 4 years if you had succeeded or failed according to your own standard? We'll start with Mr. Adams.
65% of Black and brown children are not meeting proficiency in the Department of Education every year. If I don't turn that around, I failed the city of New York and I failed our future.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Mr. McGuire, please.
It is that just one question, did you say?
I'm saying what would be the standard of success for your mayoralty? How would you know after 4 years if you'd succeeded or failed?
Yeah, I would say we'd have the lowest unemployment rate in the boroughs in which we now have the highest unemployment rate. That's number one. Number two, I'd make sure that the economy was thriving for all, that the MWBE's got a much large percentage of the $22.5 billion budget that New York City spends. I'd make sure that all of our children had the highest quality education, whether it be district, parochial, magnet, or charter schools. And I would make sure that anybody could walk outside during the course of the night and feel safe in the subways, on public transportation, in our streets, and make sure that the garbage is picked up. And make sure that the elderly had the care so that they could live with dignity, have the services that are necessary, and that we eliminated the transportation and healthcare deserts.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our two candidates, Eric Adams and Raymond McGuire. Thank you to our panelists, Stephen and Andrea. Thank you to our sign language expert, Andrea. And thank all of you for watching and listening tonight. This is Michael Krasner saying good night.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Night.